Back, everybody, to Fintech Fridays. I am excited to have a returning guest, but a returning guest with a different talk track. Tim Rood is joining. Tim is the co-founder of Impact Capital DC and has an awesome product called Alfred that I've been working with and testing out, and some of my friends have as well. And Tim, I'm excited to kind of riff on all things Alfred and generative AI. Welcome to the podcast.
Wow, this is like what's his name? Cliff from Cheers going on Jeopardy. I was like, I feel like I know all these categories. Alfred, I guess. Okay, perfect. Set him up. Let's knock him down, Brian.
We got all the buzzwords, man. You know how it is. You got to just
Cliff Clavin. That's what it was. Cliff.
Yeah, Cliffy.
Right.
He's still kicking. He and Norm, right? His corner bar seat partner, Norm. Yeah. They were here in Michigan at a Comic-Con event a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, well, the joke was when Cliff went on Jeopardy, the topics were men and their mothers, civil servants, celibacy, beers across America. I don't know what the hell the other one was, but he's like, "I'm feeling lucky. You pick one, Alex."
So good.
So roll the dice, Brian. I'm feeling lucky.
Here we are on Fintech Fridays, and it's an all cheers episode. What do you know?
Yeah,
so
sure.
Tim, let's start off just by, if you wouldn't mind, just giving folks an idea of your background. It's a pretty interesting career path you've had. You've been primarily in DC, and obviously have some experience in the GSE business. But just give us some idea of your background, and then we'll connect the dots on what you're doing with this new endeavor.
Yeah, sure, Ryan. Thanks for asking. So what's relevant probably for this group, I was a loan officer out of college. I remember 1994 quite vividly. I think, Brian, in our last interview, I disclosed that I believe I made 3 loans that year in 1994, 2 in December. And by saying I believe, it might have been 2 loans all year, and I just got used to pretending that it was 3. And so it's clouded my judgment. But so, yeah, I've been at this for a minute. That was a rough year, so I'm sympathetic to anybody originating loans this year. Subsequent to that, I was a co-lead of a skunkworks program at Fannie Mae during their e-business times in the early 2000s. That was the salad days of the internet, blue skies. We did all kinds of fun things. Turned out half of them turned out to be outside of our charter. So we discontinued doing those things. It doesn't mean they didn't work, Brian. They worked pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, we stopped doing that. When I left there, we started the Collingwood Group back in 2007, 8-ish, which was really a reaction to the financial crisis and how quickly the whole market was becoming very DC-centric from a product and regulatory standpoint, but all the assets had a tendency to be, at that time, in New York, so you needed to kind of bridge the gap. So we stood that company up and ended up selling it in 2017. It was a huge success, at least for our purposes, advising companies on doing business in and around DC, helping them with risk management and compliance challenges that they had. It was a good run, brother. Good run.
Yeah.
Sold it to Citus AMC, where I then stood up government and industry relations function in 2017. And then I just left and was lucky enough to take Citus with me as a business partner in the new venture.
Love it. I think it's important to note, Tim, for the audience that, given the experience you just highlighted and your proximity to DC, you're often reached out to by media networks, news networks for kind of your thoughts and opinions on all things housing finance. And so I just want the audience to recognize that, because they've probably seen that great head of hair on TV before.
You read it just like I wrote it, Brian. Thank you. Yeah, no, I definitely do that. It's a good experience. Look, I mean, the 3 topics I think we covered probably the other day are, if you're talking about real estate, AI, and DC, you probably got an audience, and you certainly got an audience on TV.
For sure.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, especially today, right? I mean, you can't flip through any of the network news, let alone the cable news, without sometime in a 24-hour cycle housing related, economics being newsworthy,
Right. I think the
which is a
challenge that we're
great
seeing.
segue. Go
Well, no,
ahead.
I agree. I think the challenge that people are seeing, at least certainly people in our industry, which I'm more closely tied to, is really just that the whole concept of generative AI invokes equal parts enthusiasm and terror.
Yeah.
So there's hundreds of billions of dollars chasing after this, digital sentient being, this oracle in the sky that will give you an answer to everything. Um, I think, well, like I said, it's terrifying and exciting, and we looked at both sides of that and said, look, there's probably a play here, but I need to be in the business of doing things that are one, legal, accurate, referenceable, and scalable. And the way that the generative AI, like things like ChatGPT, Perplexity, others, were really novel, super cool, interesting things. I mean, I treated them both like they were my invisible friend,
Right.
asking them all kinds of questions in the darkness of night and, blah, blah, blah. But when you actually try to pivot to professional questions, they were not very helpful because they're not trained on real estate. They're not current. So you get a bunch of general questions. So it left me sort of yearning for something more. And that's what we embarked on building, and I embarked on funding.
Right.
Was Alfred, and we started that about December of last year.
Yeah. So I've been playing around with Alfred. It's definitely something that's super interesting to me, given that I live and breathe, real estate finance, and also, sometimes like to think of myself as a content creator on LinkedIn. And so I'll be honest, I've been using it for some of my content that I've been, putting out there. And to your point, it's very, as long as, like anything, as long as you know what questions to ask, you're going to get really good, accurate and reliable output. You're producing a daily digest, I believe, off of your platform. Maybe talk a little bit about that and kind of how that came about.
Yeah, so we're doing two newsletters now. I really just intended them to be illustrative of the power of the platform. I mean, again, just because it's a simple reference, thinking about ChatGPT, a lot of the services it provides or affords people, the users, we do as well. So we're about to do ones that are a PowerPoint, allow you to get the information in an Excel spread, a memo, Excel spreadsheet, a memo, yada, yada. And that kind of builds into what you were describing, Brian, which are the newsletters. The idea there was, look, for illustrative purposes, I wanted to show that I could enter a simple prompt and then without any manual manipulation by me or the team, you would absolutely have a perfectly printable, publishable newsletter. And so I embarked on that about 2 weeks ago. Is it me or am I saying embark like every other word? So I'll have
It's
to.
it's that's part of the generative AI dictionary.
Yeah, it's a
Just
glitch.
don't
It's a
delve.
feature.
Don't
I
delve
won't.
anywhere, and we'll be all right.
No delving. So in any case, so I've done a daily dose of real estate, which is a morning email. It's just kind of a download of interesting, notable stories across real estate, multifamily, commercial, residential, all that good stuff. It's gotten a lot of great feedback. I was really a little bit surprised. The other one, I took a suggestion from a friend in the industry who suggested a weekly wrap up on Sundays and then a look forward. So you do a look back and then you look forward. And that's been going out the last two Sundays. Also going exceedingly well. But I use them again for the purposes of somebody reviewing this. Let's just take a loan officer or a company that's got a bunch of loan officers and they're thinking, man, first and foremost, I need to get my people out there. They need to have
Yeah.
something to say and evidence that they've got something to say. So let's first help them work on something to say. And then we can work on nurturing the leads that they get, nurturing those in terms of content you want to get back to them, thoughtful sort of question searches that you should do that would better align you, better tie you to those borrowers or those prospects, a million things like that.
Yeah. One of the immediate things of value I see from a loan officer perspective would be sourcing new referral relationships and using Alfred as a place to create content that you could share with realtors to build your network there. there's got to be dozens, if not hundreds of use cases for, how the platform can help create content that's both, B2B referral based, but also, direct to consumer focused as well.
One of the things too, Brian, you might be interested, or the group might be, is I was keen on this idea early on, which is a reverse lookup. Think about it. I guess probably the genesis was all the way back from searching vacations. We have 4 kids. I think you have a lot of kids as well. Is that you're constantly trying to find a deal, right? When you're raising these kids, like, I can't take 6 of these lunatics, on some lavish vacation. But unless you knew when you wanted to travel, where you wanted to go, man, you were lost.
Yeah.
So I thought the same thing when you're talking to these kids now as young adults, and they're clear in that, hey, I can't afford to buy. It's like, no. You can't afford to buy here. I can't afford to buy, right? But there's certainly some places in the continental US where you sure as hell can afford, but you have no line of sight. So your realtor is not going to tell you this. Hell, your loan officer might not tell you some of these things because they don't want to talk you out of visiting a place where they're not licensed. They don't have any real reach, what have you. But that little bit aside, you could have somebody, if you wanted to coach somebody who hadn't found a realtor yet or independent of their realtor, I won't judge the circumstances. But if you went to that same person and said, hey, look, I know you're looking at this. Have you ever thought about looking elsewhere? I mean, you seem to be strapped. You're trying to find ways to make this work. I don't know if this is the best thing for you. I don't know if this is sustainable, whatever. Why don't we just do the exercise? Even if it's just to demonstrate goodwill or to demonstrate value to the borrower. If you said, look, just tell me, what are you in the mood for? What do you like? What do you like from the weather? What do you like services wise? What's important? Buses, metros, walkable amenities. Could be job markets. If you wanted to find out, is this a good job market for nurse practitioners? Is this a good job market for teachers? And you can start asking Alfred all these sorts of questions, even down to the point of saying, I've only got 10 grand and I don't want to spend more than $3,500 a month. Yeah. Boy, howdy, Brian, you would be amazed at what you get back. And again, not trying to disrupt that sort of natural relationship between a realtor or a loan officer in that community where they're licensed to. But again, good faith and demonstrating real value to these customers, incredibly valuable.
I love that. I mean, I think that's a very vivid example or use case, if you will, for the power, because all the data that you just referenced is all out there. It's all out there, and we could go, pound the internet and cobble this together and for weeks, maybe months, to find that sweet spot, that 2 or 3 markets that you just described. What you just described is an interrogation process that probably takes 10 to 15 minutes tops, and is going to give you kind of that roadmap for success in terms of where can you buy, have the opportunity to buy today and put your money to work. I think in today's market, most loan officers are licensed in multiple states. And I actually observe that even those that are only licensed in a handful of states, most are at maybe larger companies that have loan officers that are licensed just about in every state. And so, there's opportunities, even in the instance you described, where someone starts in DC but ends up here in Metro Detroit, through the network effect can find another loan officer in your company, in your network, that can benefit and help your consumer. All those things, to me, it's all about helping as many consumers become homeowners as possible and building the database that way. Because you help one in your market find this kind of diamond in the rough, they're going to talk you up to their friends and family that are in market. So it's all going to come around.
One of the things, Brian, we talked about with, I don't want to get ahead of myself, a company called Flimdocker, something like that, or phonetically sounds like that. I'll let you sit with that for a second. Anyway, one of the things that we were talking about is, imagine extending Alfred through that portal, this loan officer portal, giving them access to it, but extending it to their customers, so that their customers who maybe don't want to shoot, I don't want to ask Brian this, or I'm not really comfortable talking about that topic. Let's just go to this cool tool that he gave us as a value add so I can ask questions about, do I really need to be worried about this? Is that really a problem? Is it, you can go through and feed whatever their curiosity and fears are and give them that tool to, scream into all night. But then while we were talking about this, I think I was talking to the company last week, it dawned on me, I was like, it would be a great feature because who the hell what kind of loan officer wants their customers taking advice and counsel from anybody other than themselves? Alfred might be an exception because you'll get comfortable with it and the
Yep.
response that it's getting. But imagine if in that same scenario, if we facilitated their customers, their prospects to go through and use the tool. And then as they're using it, we were able to give the loan officer a view into the questions that were being asked. It's
It's
like,
huge.
here's a download of all the questions. So you're like, what
Yeah.
the hell are they asking you this thing about that? Why are they talking? We already covered that. You'll know exactly where they are in their head a little bit more intimately. So anyway, I thought that was a kind of a novel approach to controlling your customer, but also giving them service options and then giving them also delivery options.
Yeah, it lines up with our the way we think about our value at FinLocker rhymes with the company the word you used.
Dim
You know,
Slocker.
the way we think about the value of our product for our client, who most of our clients are businesses, loan officers, et cetera. We effectively have powered loan officers to give their consumers this sandbox, this place
Right.
to assess their own financial well-being and kind of where they are on that roadmap towards being financial ready, hopefully keeping that consumer off of other website portals like Zillow, Redfin, etc. And I
Yep.
would say what you're describing in this kind of closed ecosystem goes a step further, and again potentially keeps consumer engaged with you, the loan officer, with your brand and your company, which all we're looking for today as loan officers is opportunities to educate and remain engaged with our prospects, because it's probably taking 4 times longer today for a first time home buyer to cycle through, from point of thought to point of sale than it was, 2 years ago. So you've got to find ways to stay meaningfully connected through that longer kind of nurturing and incubation cycle. Your platform's a perfect tool to do that.
Thanks. I mean, one of the things early on that we were looking at, Brian, on this was, look, as somebody who's been in a air quote business advisor for 20 years to, government, banks and whatnot, as you quickly realize is like, I think maybe this was my internal monologue, but I'll share it with you. I was like, if somebody asked me one more time, what's going on in DC, I might just strip off my clothes and run streaking into traffic. I was like, I can't stand that question. It's impossible to understand and comprehend the entirety of everything going on in DC that's relevant to real estate and mortgages. So I took that as kind of the white flag. It's like, I give up. I just can't say I'm going to get up earlier. There isn't earlier anymore at some point. And maybe Jamie Dimon can get up and read 3 newspapers and then get debriefed from his staff for 2 hours. The rest of us have got stuff to do.
Right.
So I
Right.
need to get on, and I looked at my news, and I think about this from a loan officer perspective. Here are the news for you. Think about them as you just get up, you get a cup of coffee, you're like, oh man, all I'm thinking about are opportunities and threats. Like, oh Christ, is this going to be a bad day or a good day?
Right.
Maybe a little bit of entertainment sprinkled in, but 5 minutes into, okay, these are opportunities. I'm feeling good. Not too many threats. Okay, let's do this. Let's get going. You can get moving with your day as opposed to reading 15 articles with the anticipation that you might learn something, but there's no evidence that you're going to learn anything, but you will learn probably to spend your time more wisely tomorrow.
Yeah. No, I love that exact use case, because I think, again, every good loan officer that I know is looking for ways to be that trusted resource for their customer, their database.
Right.
And none of us has the time or resources to take in all the news. And again, you guys have created this way to now you haven't figured out yet how to make the loan officer read it and turn it into something external, but you're taking the horse right to the water, right?
I like to think so, man. I like to think so. I'm feeling very good about it. I've gotten incredible feedback. I think you're going to see some announcements in the next 30 days that will be more evidence. So I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling very grateful that people are responding to it. Quite frankly, I'm feeling great that the damn thing works. we spent a lot of money and we had a lot of, it should work.
Yeah.
Look, this is a fluid market and this is very novel and fluid technology. So we're trying our damnedest to be at the tippy top in terms of the development cycle. And that's an exhausting process, but we want to make sure that we were doing this because somebody in the industry needs to be managing at that level of sort of impact where things are going and ultimately what we can harvest for the good of the industry. And this is just one example.
Tim, as always, man, I love our conversations. I'm super excited about what you guys are working on. When we publish this, we'll make sure everyone that you'll see the link to the Alfred site, to the newsletter. Subscribe to both the daily and the look ahead and look back newsletter. Tim, anything else you'd like to leave the audience with before we wrap for the day?
No, but thanks, Brian. I think the one thing I will delete to contradict myself is we're going to do away with the individual membership fees and we're just going to what would be enterprise client relationships. So we're just going to be selling bulk license subscriptions to large companies. It's a lot more manageable, a lot more valued. And it turns out that I am absolutely no good, not since I was 14 years old, trying to sell things for $25 to consumers. So I'm going to stop for the time being.
There you go. Smart.
Yeah.
Smart way to go. I think there's enough there's enough companies out there and there's enough organizations, I think, that clearly will see the value in making it available for their team. So I don't think you're going to have a problem with that.
Yeah, I think what this will evolve, Brian, not to extend this further, but seems to be evolving is that there really isn't a company in mortgage finance, real estate, that I've seen that understands both the business problems, the regulatory issues, all of these fundamental things that you need at the C-suite, but also have that sort of cutting edge, gritty IT, AI, IT sort of kind of rough, gritty center. Yeah. So I think that as everybody in the industry is kind of evaluating, oh man, I know I should do something. I sure as hell don't want to do that. That scares the hell out of me. Who the heck knows how to do any of this stuff? So I think that our industry is probably best suited for somebody like a small boutique firm that can make real progress in short time with small sort of price tags, but massive impacts, quick ROI, only from people who understand this stuff inside and out, and that have made the investments, not just us, but others in these emerging technologies.
Well, congrats, Tim, on the launch. Looking forward to great success. I appreciate you spending time with our audience here on Fintech Fridays.
Pleasure, brother. Anything for you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.